Hello there. Chatbots and voice or digital assistants are one of the most important tools in today's and especially in tomorrow's world. But who are the people who make them work? The conversation designers. My name is Eran Soroka, Head of Marketing Operations for CoCoHub Conversational Components. Today we have a special guest from the land of liberty, equality, and fraternity, Maaike Coppens, independent voice and UX and strategist consultant and co-founder at Promptful.io. A long, lengthy title. How are you, Maaike?
I'm fine, thank you. It's because I do a lot of things, but all related to human-computer interactions.
Yeah, you're just a busy woman. First of all, how did you get to conversation design?
Conversation design and me has been kind of a love story, to be honest. Way back when, loads of years ago, when I was still young and fresh. I have an academic path in linguistics, so I was always very passionate about words, about writing, about how language works. And I have always been very passionate as well about making sure that digital solutions are useful and intuitive to users. And so I started doing UX design. I'm training in UX design. And when conversational agents became more mainstream, I thought this is just a perfect fit for me. It's the marriage of my two main passions, which is UX design and language. And so it was a very natural step for me to take.
Yeah, as you said, you're very busy. You have a lot of projects. What is the project or chatbot that you're most proud of all your creations?
Well, I usually work with a lot of big brands, and I would say that it's not necessarily a specific bot or a specific project that I'm really proud of. Whereas what I'm proud of is the methodology and the different voice X design sprint that I've run with companies, and also the way those companies and my clients have managed to put UX front and center throughout their work with me. So I wouldn't say like it's this specific one or this specific one, but it's rather the way and the progress that companies have made throughout the process of building chatbots, from just building basic FAQ chatbots to now really focusing more on what the conversational experience is like. Furthermore, I would say that I'm also proud of the voice community, because the more we move forward, the more voices start to arise for inclusive design in conversation design, for accessibility in conversation design. So I'm proud of all of those things, to be honest.
Talking about this, you are an ambassador and advocate for women in voice. What are the main challenges for women in this industry nowadays?
So, as with any digital industry, I think it's important to give a voice, as a manner of speech, to everyone. Inclusion is a very big part of my design philosophy. And therefore, when Women in Voice and Dr. Joan Palmiter Ballarak started Women in Voice, I found it very natural to be part of it, because it's important for me to give anyone, and especially women, a voice within any digital industry. And I find that the voice ecosystem in particular has been very successful at giving women a preponderant space. So I think, for one, that Women in Voice has already made a difference in giving women that voice and giving them that space and that place. But I think there's also still a lot of work and advocacy to be done. And I think you don't need, even though it's called Women in Voice, I think it's really a place and an organization of inclusion and of diversity, and that's really at the heart of what we're trying to do.
What is the one thing that every chatbot or voice assistant must have or should have, in your opinion?
A good user experience. No, what any chatbot or voice assistant should have is a design that makes sure that users can accomplish what they set out to do in the most natural and quick and efficient way possible. And when I say that, I really want to emphasize the fact that chatbots and voice assistants are a utility. They are a tool, they are a digital interface, and it's really important that more than for any other interface, the use of words is carefully chosen. Because sometimes a word might seem very standard, normal, but might be perceived by some people as being offensive, or might be perceived as being aggressive. When you think about it, sometimes you're messaging with people, for example, and you read the message, even with human conversation, and you read the message and you go, oh, wow, he's not like, he got up on the wrong foot. And then you reach out to the person and said, oh, well, last time you sent me that message, I felt a bit offended. And he goes, oh, well, that was not at all what I meant it to say. Like, that happens to all of us. Mm-hmm. And that's because words are not chosen very distinctively, very proactively. We just put out the message. And when trying to go too fast with like chatbots or voice assistants, when we are designing these conversations, we might have a tendency to think about the sentences, to think about the responses, but not to hyper focus on each word. So to make sure that these words work for the large majority of people and might not offend anyone or might not come over as aggressive. And I think it's really important because a lot of it has been said about, for example, sentiment analysis. Like a lot of people say, oh, that's great. And that way the bot interprets exactly what the user says. And then he can reply according how the user feels. And that's all technical marvel, and it's great. But it starts before that. We already have to think when doing the conversation design, what is the impact going to be of the words that we use on the user? Because it's all good and well to be able to detect that the user is disappointed or angry or whatever, and then have a reply that tailors to that sentiment. But let's already think about, okay, how can I make sure that the words that I use don't get the user to that point where he's angry or upset or disappointed?
It seems like you have like a long experience with that. Can you give us one example that is like written in your mind of something amazing or curious or awkward that happened to you while designing all this UX?
Well, I'm actually going to tell you about a failure because I think that failures are a great way to learn, and sometimes they are in unexpected places. I was designing a voice interface in a healthcare environment, and so the error message or the error handling that we did was, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Can you please repeat that? Which might feel very, very standard. Like a lot of voice assistant or chatbots use that kind of phrasing. And we didn't think twice about it. And then we like put the agent out there with users, and one of the users told me, I find that very offensive. And I said, why did you find that very offensive? I didn't really understand. And he said, well, you know, I have hearing problems, and so the fact that a system says I didn't hear you reminds me of the fact that I have hearing problems, and it just is offensive to me to be reminded of that, and it also sometimes mean that I talk more loudly or less loudly, and it just reminds me of an incapacity that I have, and the fact that a robot says that kind of thing just doesn't resonate with me.
Yeah, terribly.
And I was like, oh my God, it's because we're designing these standard things, and you say, okay, there's silence, so naturally you'd say, okay, I didn't hear anything. It just seemed like such a small sentence, but actually it triggered a big reaction.
Yeah. A lot of people are watching it and saying to themselves, wow, this is such a cool profession. How can I get to it? How can I start? Where do I start? What piece of advice or tip can you give those people?
Just start. Just start. And when I say that is, we are all different people with different ways of learning. So there's people like me who are eternal learners. There's not a course I wouldn't take if I just could learn something new. And then there are more practical hands-on people. And I think that that really want to like learn by doing. And I think you have to think about what works for you from a learning perspective. And there's a lot of courses out there. It's also a great opportunity for me to talk about Promptful, which is actually the reason why we started Promptful together with Heidi Culbertson, is to do these interactive hands-on workshops where we take the participants through a voice design creation process, but not just, hey, this is the process, learn about it, but hey, like, let's do these exercises and let's at the end have a prototype.
Wow.
So it's that's for those like practical learners out there that really want to get their hands dirty. And then there's other learners that would rather just read stuff. And there's a lot of great books about conversation design out there. There's Designing Bots by Amir Shavat. There's Designing Voice User Interface by Caddy Pearl. There's loads and loads of books out there. And anyone can reach out to me. I'll happily provide a list. Because I have an entire library of them. So.
You should have it like behind your
yeah. Well,
yeah.
I set it up like that for my voice summit talk, actually, with the library behind me. But on a day-to-day basis, it's not really practical because it's on the sideway of where my desk is. So.
Okay, and so you already spoke about Promptful, and anything else you want to tell us about your company?
Well, not really. I mean, it's more about seeing than it's about telling about it. So it had the reason why we started Promptful is really because both Heidi and me, we really want people to get their hands dirty with voice and to also share our design philosophy and to make sure that people think about accessibility and inclusion. And it's really voice workshops, but it's also about making sure that you think about every single word and how that influences people's emotions and how that tailors an experience about, and how that can make or break your experience, basically.
Every word matters.
Every word matters, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so thank you a lot, Maaike Coppens. It was fascinating.
Thank you.
Independent voice UX and strategy consultant and co-founder at Promptful.io. Thanks for being with us.
You're welcome, and thank you for having me.
Okay. And for everybody watching, don't forget to check out our hub at CoCoHub.ai, the place to build, expand, improve, and test your conversational components. Take care. Bye-bye.